I have just finished reading a really wonderful book that I've enjoyed so much, a very thought-provoking read, and I'm so happy to have the author of Why We Kneel, How We Rise, Michael Holding, to discuss his book. Mikey, congratulations, first of all. It's a huge undertaking to write a book.
Yes.
How are you feeling about it at the moment?
At the moment, I'm feeling very good, Mel, because I've had so much positive feedback about this book. When I took on the task to write it, I was very nervous. I said that to my ghostwriter, Ed Hawkins. I said it to my literary agent, Charlotte Attio. I said, this is something that I don't think I've really thought through properly when I decided to do this book. And I'm very nervous about actually doing it. And both of them convinced me that everything would be okay, and I'm glad the way it has turned out. It was hard work, meaning a lot of research had to be doing. Both Ed and myself had to do a lot of research. But perhaps what helped us was the fact that it was during COVID times, or it was still in COVID times. But during lockdown in our part of the world, we had lockdown in Cayman, we had lockdown in the UK, everywhere. So we had a lot of time. People that we wanted to access, they were in lockdown as well. So they weren't that busy. So they were happy to give up their time. So in the end, I think the book was a pretty good job done, because those who have criticized the book, I haven't heard too many, but those who have criticized the book have not been able to criticize it substantively. They just throw up their arms and say, oh, I can't be bothered with that. They can't point to anything where it is wrong or they're factually inaccurate. There's nothing that they can point to in that regard. So I'm very, very happy the way it has come out. And some of the reaction, Mel, has pleased me. I had a history teacher who came up to me at Nottingham, Trent Bridge, during a book signing, and said to me that he read the book and they are going to now look at the way they teach history at his school. And that is what I am hoping for. People can see that we have been taught a lot of things, a lot of half-truths, a lot of lies as well, and that we need to change the way we understand history and the way we understand mankind.
Absolutely. That's certainly one of the things that stood out for me is the incredible breadth of history, world history, that you sort of look at and pick out as well. And you've involved some really big names in there as well. Everyone from Naomi Osaka to Adam Goods. You've got Thierry Henry in there. You've got Usain Bolt, fastest man alive. And it's interesting to me the way that you've managed to sort of use their experiences and stories in telling this wider and bigger picture as well. Was it that important to you to be able to relate it back to sport, I guess, because that's your world?
Very, very important, Mel, because, sport, as I say, transgresses all sort of boundaries. And all different types of people love sport, are interested in sport, and can identify with these sporting icons. So it was very important to get them on board, but also very important for people to see that these sporting icons come from all parts of the world. They have all different kinds of backgrounds. They are rich and poor, because not all of them are multi-millionaires. Hope Powell is certainly not a multi-millionaire. Neither is Ibtihaj Mohammed, but people like Michael Johnson and Usain Bolt and Thierry Henry, those are multi-millionaires. But they all experience racism, irrespective of their backgrounds, irrespective of their financial position, irrespective of their popularity, because not everyone, as you mentioned, is as popular as Michael Johnson or Usain Bolt or those people. So the only common factor, Mel, is the color of their skin. So it was important that people get to understand that irrespective of where you're from, irrespective of your background, irrespective of your financial position, once you have a black skin, you experience racism. And that is what we need people to understand.
When you look at cricket in particular, you do spend quite a bit of time in the book talking about things like the rebel tours to South Africa, and I guess even now, I mean, cricket. You talk about sort of people who are involved in that and the positions that they have now, perhaps in English cricket, in Australian cricket, you sort of have that as well. Is cricket still coming to terms with its own racist past, do you think?
Well, if you notice in the book, I also mentioned a little bit about the history of the game, and especially in the Caribbean, where cricket in the Caribbean was mainly played by the white colonizers. And when the blacks started to get involved in the game, they weren't seen as good enough to actually do any batting. Yeah, you're black, you're strong, you can go and bowl fast, you can go and field, but the artistry of batting, you're not capable of that. So that shows you the history of the game and where it's coming from. We have moved a long way away from that in cricket because obviously people can see the great I.B.A. Richards, the way he batted, the artistry of his batting, and a lot of others. But I think when you have a history like that, it is difficult to shed it totally. And I think that is what is the problem right now with cricket in England. Why they are finding it difficult and almost impossible to show solidarity behind BLM. They have refused to take a knee since the West Indies team departed. And when the West Indies team was here and they did it and then they left, their reasoning was they did it in solidarity of their visitors. So that just tells you if the West Indies team was a white team or if it's from other country, they wouldn't have taken the knee. So they still haven't divorced themselves from the total history of the game. But to be honest, I am not worried about cricket. I'm not worried about football. I'm not worried about any particular sport. What I'm worried about is the society in which we live. If the society changes, all those sports will eventually have to change because the people who play sports, the people who administer sports, the people who watch sports come from the society. So if the society is right, if we can get that right and we can get people to understand the truth of mankind, then we won't have to worry about individual sports.
The fact that I suppose that some things are now big issues, and you look at the issue with Ollie Robinson's tweets in the past. You look at the review at Yorkshire involving racist behaviour and the sort of testimony of Azeem Rafiq, and if you look at the testimonies that are being held in South Africa at the moment, I mean, a lot of that stuff is really shocking and confronting. Is it also, I mean, you don't want to say it's a good thing because it's obviously it's an awful thing for the people who go through it. It's an awful thing to read about it. Is there at least some positivity that at least like that these conversations are being had now, whereas they not that very many years ago they probably wouldn't have even had those conversations?
Absolutely. This is not something new, This has been going on for decades. I know a lot of West Indian cricketers who have played county cricket who could tell you some of the stories about their experiences. But years gone by, nobody paid attention. If it was ever brought forward, it would be brushed under the carpet and they would move on. They would say, oh, as I have said in my book, if I had written this book 20 years ago, it wouldn't have the effect that it's having now. The atmosphere has changed. So much you hear years ago, Mel, about a black person or a black man or woman complaining about something, they just brush it aside and say, oh, that's just another angry black man or an angry black woman having a chip on their shoulder. Not today, because the atmosphere has changed and people have recognized now, a lot more people, not everyone, that things are not right and it's time for change. And it's good to see that. It's good to have these conversations. It's good that people want to have these conversations. And we see corporates all over the world looking at themselves and saying, we have to change.
Would you like to see, in Australia, for example, that there was some discussion about taking of the knee? The men decided not to. They've gone for these other things. I guess, some of the gestures are perhaps seen as less confronting or maybe just culturally specific. So they decided to have sort of the barefoot circle with more of an Indigenous Australian focus. The women, interestingly enough, they did that as well in the WBBL, but also took a knee. That was something that they decided was important for WBBL matches. Do you think that should translate to, or be something that's taken up more by Australian cricket? Is that important?
Mel, I have said before, I'm not a BLM policeman. I'm not going to tell people what they must do and what they must not do. It's up to people themselves to take it upon themselves and say, yes, I support this cause, or I don't support this cause. The worldwide accepted gesture for supporting BLM is taking a knee. If you support the cause, I would expect you to acknowledge the worldwide accepted gesture and just do it. I'm not going to tell people what to do. There are many ways of supporting different things, and if you have it, your culture decides that this is the way you want to support a specific cause, that is fine. But that doesn't mean you can also take a knee. I've seen a Swedish women's football team. I don't think they have too many black situations in Sweden. And I've seen them decide that they are taking a knee because they support this worldwide cause. I've seen an under-16 Scottish cricket team, some young kids, take a knee before their cricket game. The footballers in England continue to take a knee, although they have been booed throughout the Euros. They started out the EPL again and they continue to take a knee. The booing has slowly died, because that is what you do. You force people to understand. And if you allow people to bully you into not supporting a cause, you're weak. It's as simple as that.
Wow. And Mikey, for people who are out there, and I hate this because it feels like the burden shouldn't be on you to educate, but you've taken on this sort of role of educator, I suppose, with this book. But do you think there are things that people could do who are out there, white people who may not understand? Do you think it's just a matter of them going and educating themselves? Is there something that you think could be really helpful even within sport or within cricket specifically?
I don't want to look at any particular sport, Mel. I need people to just go out there and seek the education necessary to find out about the world and to find out about the true history. We went to school and we were taught certain things. And growing up, you accept what you are being taught as truth. For instance, I keep on using this as a reference. When I was a young man, we're talking about Christians now. When I was a young man growing up, I was taught that Jesus Christ was a white man with blonde hair and blue eyes. And I believed that for decades, until I got to understand the true history of the region that Jesus is from, and it was impossible for him to have looked like that at that time of history in that part of the world. But that's what you're taught, so you believe it. Information is available. I started seeking information more and more as time went on because I was discovering things that were never taught to me. I was discovering half-truths, I was discovering lies. And I decided, what else have they been hiding? And a lot of the stuff in that book has been hidden because it did not suit a particular narrative. And that is what people need to understand. A narrative was set decades ago, and the Western world, Europe, decided to make sure that narrative fit because of what they wanted to do, exploit a race. And if they made sure that narrative stuck, when they started to exploit a particular race, they themselves would not feel guilty because they did not believe they were doing anything wrong. This was not something that happened by chance, Mel. It was a planned execution. So that is what the situation is. And people need to go back and learn about all that and understand about all that and recognize that things need to change.
Well, I can certainly recommend that a great place to start is your book, because it is a brilliant read in so many different ways. And I know that I learned a lot reading it as well. So I'm hoping that a lot of other people will read it with open minds and open hearts. Mikey, thank you so much for talking to me. Again, congratulations on the book. It is a huge achievement. And I hope it brings you a lot of joy in the end from the impact that it has.
Thank you very much, Mel. And it's going to be a long, hard battle, but I'm hoping that my great-grandchildren will benefit. I won't.